Welcome to another broadcast of comics and pop culture. Let's talk shorts. Today, we're going to discuss the rock band that influenced two generations of music, the hair bands of the 80s and the grunge movement of the 90s. Which band am I talking about? I'll let you know in a moment, but first I want to tell you about my franchise Carl Vincent, Vampire Hunter. Check the links below for more information. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and ring the little bell to stay informed of upcoming shows. And now, let's talk about Kiss is the band that influenced two generations of rock and roll. Before you scoff at that, stay with me and hear me out. If you disagree at the end of this video, let me know in the comments below.
Phone is ringing. You got me on the run. I'm driving in my car.
When we discuss the beginnings of the rock band Kiss, it's important to note that, before they became famous, they were influencing artists even then. In 1973, the New York Dolls were the biggest band in New York, and Kiss decided they had to go even further than the Dolls if they were going to be bigger than them, so they took David Bowie's and Alice Cooper's theatrics to the extreme. Kiss's first shows were at a Queens nightclub called Coventry, best known in 1973 for a New York Dolls monthly engagement. Joey Ramone was there one night, and Tommy Ramone came to a later show at the Coventry. They both loved the songs, but they were also clearly impressed by the concept of creating a cohesive band with a brand identity based on a distinctive uniform. Dee Ramone, Debbie Harry, the New York Dolls, and members of the Warhol entourage all came to Kiss's first show in Manhattan, and in their first year, Kiss played on bills with the Stooges, the New York Dolls, Suzi Quatro, and Slade. In the 70s, Kiss the leaders. By the 80s they had become the followers. Joe Elliott of Def Leppard remembers Kiss' influence on him. Let's backtrack. The first time I came into Kiss's orbit was the summer of '76. I went downtown in Sheffield like I always did on a Saturday morning, and I walked to Bradley's Records, which was our main hangout, to buy records in. And there was this huge poster of the Destroyer cover in the window 6 foot high, and these guys stood like cartoon style on top of this burning hill. And I remember looking at it and thinking I'd heard of Kiss, but I'd never ever heard Kiss. I knew they'd wear makeup, but so did the New York Dolls, so I didn't know how it went, and this is pre-internet of course, so you couldn't just go online and look for it. If they weren't in the newspapers, you never saw them. And I saw this thing and I thought, I distinctly remember thinking, if they sound like they look, this is gonna be amazing cause it's 3D. The majority of the hair bands of the 80s have at least one member that cites Kiss as a major influence, but what about the 90s? Do a majority of grunge artists cite Kiss as an influence as well? One answer to that question is Nirvana. Kiss played an important role in the development not just of 80s hair metal but also of Nirvana and many other indie bands, because, for a whole lot of boys born in the 60s, outside of big cities, boys like Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic, it was not Iggy or the Velvet Underground who embodied the spirit of rebellion championed by indie rock, at least not at first. It was Kiss, which is why indie rock is part of the band's legacy. Kiss's sound shows up most obviously in grunge in bands like Soundgarden, Mudhoney, and Alice in Chains, but not just there. Peter Prescott of Mission of Burma once complained, "I heard in grunge the kind of stuff I had always wanted to get away from. Not that I hate Kiss. That's what I played in my basement in high school." The difference between post-punk and grunge might be that a lot of the post-punk guys rejected Kiss after liking them, while a lot of grunge musicians continued to embrace Kiss. The deep roots of grunge and of Pearl Jam in particular can be heard clearly in the 1974 song Goin' Blind, which was covered straight by the Melvins. Hotter Than Hell is considered to be the first grunge album. Weezer's Rivers Cuomo played in a Kiss cover band at 13. Trent Reznor has confessed, "Kiss changed my world. It seemed evil and scary, the embodiment of rebelliousness when you're age 12 and starting to get hair on your balls." Like Reznor, Bob Mould, the guitarist of Husker Du, grew up in rural America, with little access to college radio or record stores carrying the Velvet Underground and the New York Dolls. As a teenager, he was a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army, who dressed up in homemade Kiss costumes with his high school friends and lip-synced on a winter carnival float shrouded in dry ice fog. Even though many grown rock fans thought Kiss looked silly, lots of prepubescent boys saw in those early album covers a band that was willing to look and act like total freaks in the name of their music, the very same thing Reznor, Marilyn Manson, Billy Corgan, and many other indie rock bands would try to do. That was our look at Kiss and the music they influenced. Because two generations, the 80s and 90s, cite the band as influences of their music, it's safe to say that their critics and detractors just don't get the band. What do you think? Are Kiss talented musicians, or are they all flash with no substance? Do you see Kiss influence in both generations of music? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, this is Andrew in for Kevin Given saying live long and prosper, may the force be with you and keep reaching for the stars.